Okay, so in this video we're going into a little bit more detail about isosceles triangles. Pretty much remember an isosceles triangle has at least two congruent sides. So remember an equilateral triangle, which has three congruent sides, is technically a special type of isosceles. So just keep that in mind. And we're told that if an isosceles triangle has exactly two congruent sides, then they're called the legs of the triangle, and the non-congruent side is called the base. We know that from the very first video in this chapter where we were just describing some definitions classifying triangles. The two angles that are adjacent to the base are called the base angles, and the angle opposite to the base is called the vertex angle. So here in the picture, my two congruent sides are called the legs. The non-congruent side is called the base. We already know that. The vertex angle is always directly across from the base in an isosceles triangle. The other two angles, which are opposite the congruent legs, are called the base angles. And what we know about the base angles in an isosceles triangle is that they're congruent. So for instance, if I have an isosceles triangle ABC, and I know that AB is congruent to AC, then the base angles, angle B and angle C, have to be congruent to each other. That's just a rule. Okay? So in an isosceles triangle, you're always going to have at least two congruent sides and at least two congruent angles. So keep that in mind. So that takes us to example A. We're going to use this diagram to find the measures of x and y. Alright, so let's start off with angle X, or with x. So I'm just looking at this triangle right here, and I see that 1, 2, 3 sides are congruent, so that's equilateral. So the green triangle is an equilateral triangle, and which means it's a special type of isosceles. So we know that the base angles are opposite the congruent sides, and base angles are congruent. So here's a congruent side, here's a congruent side, and here's a congruent side. So I have base angles that are opposite those congruent sides, and those base angles are congruent. So really what I know is that all three of these angles are x. And I know that on the inside of any triangle, the angle is always at the 180. So for the green triangle, I have x plus x plus x equals 180, which means I have 3x equals 180. And if I divide by 3 on each side, I'm told that x equals 60. All right, great. Now let's look at the blue. At the other triangle, which I'm going to do in purple. Alright, well, we have a congruent side and a congruent side. So that means this is just an isosceles triangle. It's not equilateral, it's just isosceles. But since it's isosceles, the two congruent sides are called the legs, and directly across from the legs are called the base angles. And we just know from this rule above that the base angles in an isosceles triangle are always congruent. So I have y and y. Those two angles are the same. Now looking at my total picture, we already know that x is 60 degrees and we have a straight line. So we have 60 degrees and we have a straight line. So right here, this missing angle, which I'm just going to call question mark, we have 180, because it's a straight line, is equal to 60 plus whatever this mystery angle is, question mark. Well, I want to get that mystery angle by itself, so I'm going to subtract 60. Cancel out, so I have 120 degrees is equal to our mystery angle. And again, I just represented that with a question mark. You can call that Z if you want to. You can call that A. Whatever variable you want. Here, my variable is a question mark. That's okay. You can do smiley face if you want. So I know that this angle is 120 degrees in the purple triangle. Alright, great. Now, since I know I have three angles, 1, 2, 3, and I know that in any triangle, the interior angle is always at the 180. So I have 180 is equal to 120 that I just found, minus y minus y. Okay? Or sorry, plus y. I don't know why I said minus. That was dumb of me. So the interior angles add up to 180. So I have 180 is equal to 120 plus 2y, and now I'm ready to start solving. I'm going to start by subtracting 120 on both sides. Cancel out, so I have 60 degrees is equal to 2y. Now divide by 2 on each side. So I have y equals 30. So we started off with a complicated picture. Obviously, the more information I put in there, it kind of got a little messy. That's all right. You're going to have this picture clean on your paper. But I suggest, anytime we're doing these geometry type problems, you fill in the picture. That's the key to success. Fill in the picture as you go. And that's it. We were talking about isosceles triangles in this video. If you got questions, let me know.